Hi, I'm Shiva Reinhardt, and we're here at the Blue Lotus Yoga Studio in Ruidoso, New Mexico. And I wanted to make this video to talk about breathing in yoga. I get a lot of questions, especially in my beginners classes and my advanced classes actually, about how to breathe in yoga and what's the correct way to breathe. I'll do a separate video on how to do Ujjayi breath, which is a specific technique that we use throughout the asana practice. And this video that I'm making right now will talk more about breathing in general and why the breath is important and how we use the breath in yoga and the right way to breathe. There's no one right way to breathe. There's many correct ways to breathe. The main thing in yoga is that you are conscious and aware of your breath. So most of the time, our breath is happening unconsciously throughout the day, and we aren't paying any attention to it, and the breath is very tied to our emotional state. So when we're relaxed and happy, the breath tends to be slow and deep and satisfying, and when we're nervous, anxious, scared, stressed out, the breath tends to be shallow. And it goes both ways. So when we're nervous and stressed out, the breath becomes shallow. And then also, if your breath is shallow, you can then become nervous due to that. It's the body and mind are connected in that way. And in fact, saying that the body and the mind are connected is almost a misnomer. It almost seems like makes them seem more separate than they are. The body and the mind are two aspects of one thing. In the same way that heat and light are two aspects of fire, the body and the mind are just two aspects of you. They're two parts of you. So they're not disconnected. You can't really connect them because they're already connected. And the breath is one aspect that we can tune into that really reflects that innate connection. When the breath is quick and fast and stressed out, then the mind becomes that way also. So in our yoga practice, we are striving to bring the breath into a relaxed way of breathing. We do this by breathing through the nose primarily, because breathing through the nose is something that happens when we're more relaxed. We breathe through the mouth frequently when we have the fight or flight response, when we're running from somebody or something. And when we're trying to get as much oxygen as possible, it's actually better to breathe through the mouth. And instead of having that as our goal in yoga, our goal is to relax the mind and the body as much as possible with whatever we throw at it. So we may be doing a lot of difficult asana, difficult breath practices, and we want to calm the breath down as much as possible within that situation. So right now, as you're listening to me, just close your eyes and start to breathe through your nose. And the first aspect of the breath is simply becoming aware of it. So you don't have to change your breathing at all, but simply notice your breath. And you can notice the sound of your breath. You can notice the quality of it. Is it ragged? Is it smooth? What parts of your body is it moving into? Does your belly move? Does your rib cage move? Does your chest move? Does your back move? So just continuing that awareness of the breath. You can also feel the temperature of the air. It's a different temperature when it enters from when it exits your nostrils. And there's no, in terms of breathing into the places in your body, sometimes we've been taught the deep abdominal breath. Is that the correct way to breathe? Breathing through your chest is not the correct way to breathe, is also something that we commonly hear. The main thing is that you want to utilize your full breath capacity. So that means not breathing only out of one place. So if you just breathe out of your belly, you're only using that one part of your lungs, which is the lower part. When your belly expands, the lungs open up downwards, right? So the diaphragm, which is underneath the rib cage here, the diaphragm expands downwards, and the abdominal contents moves forwards to make room for your lungs to descend. That's one way. Then the rib cage can move outwards, and this is what I see people having the most difficulty with, is getting the ribs to move at all. Because when we're scared, that's what happens. We try to protect our internal organs. So that's a natural, normal, good thing to do, is when you're scared, to protect your internal organs. But what happens is when we're continually in this stress response, we immobilize the rib cage, and then we can't breathe. So getting the rib cage mobilized has to do with loosening up the intercostal muscles. So there's muscles in between your ribs that if we stretch them out, then it's going to give the rib cage more mobility. And you can think of when you see an animal breathing frequently, like a tiger, the rib cage really moves up and down. Tiger is not doing deep belly breaths when they're relaxed. Their rib cage is kind of heaving. And so if we can mobilize the rib cage, we're going to recruit this expansion of the lungs outwards. And then the upper ribs is the last thing that we also want to move. So it's okay to breathe into the upper chest. It's just that you don't want to only breathe into the upper chest, because that'll be a shallow breath, utilizing only a portion of your breath capacity. So the last thing I'd like to do here is to explore each of these parts, and it's called the yogic 3-part breath is one way to describe it. And we'll breathe into, first starting the upper ribs. And you can do this laying down if you're more comfortable. I'll just do it sitting up so you can see me here. And when you place your hands on your body, you want them to be touching the neck, the lower neck here, as well as the collarbones and the upper chest. And we'll take the first few breaths just focusing on bringing the breath into this area. And so your fingers are here to feel, are you getting the breath into this area? Just take a slow, deep breath. And if you can't feel those places moving, you can kind of tap and see if you can bring more awareness there. And this is a practice you can do for 5 or 10 minutes if you're not feeling any movement. It's worth the patience, and it will happen. You just have to listen to the body, listen to the signals, and slow your breath down. And so the next place we'll go to is the lower ribs. I'd like you to place your hands so that you can feel around the sides of your body and the front of your body, and you're holding your rib cage here. And we want the rib cage to move the arms, to move the hands wider. So as you inhale now, you're focusing on these lower ribs. And you want to feel as if there's a balloon inside your rib cage that's spreading them open. And as you're doing this, this may not be the most relaxed breath ever, because for many of us, we're fighting against the tension that holds our rib cage closed in that stress response. And so it's okay if this feels difficult. That's a normal thing to feel as you're practicing this for maybe the first time. The more you practice this, breathing into the ribs, the more these muscles will become pliable, flexible, loose, and will give you that breath capacity of the rib cage opening. And then the last place we'll come to is the belly, the abdominal breath. In order to do this, we need to love the belly. So place your hands there with love and let your belly relax completely. And for many of us that have some different cultural impositions about how we feel about the belly, it's hard to relax it. Just right now, giving yourself permission to let go completely, to let the belly hang out. And as you breathe into your relaxed belly, creative center, just feeling the belly expand outwards. Underneath your hands, you should feel the belly move. And you may even feel almost a bearing down sensation. So to really get the belly to move, we have to actually keep the air from going into the rib cage too much. There's a little bit of a bearing down, and that helps us to move the breath all the way down to the pelvic floor, to the lower belly, to the lower back. So now we've gotten those three parts. Ideally, as we take a breath in yoga, we're using all of that simultaneously. And in the beginning, you're thinking a lot, and am I getting it here, am I getting it there? And after all these places become active and under your conscious control, then you'll be using them all naturally together. So let's just take a few deep breaths, and I'd like you to, with your eyes closed, just really tune in to what you're feeling in your body, to what places that the breath is going to. You want to feel for inhabiting not only the front of your body, but the sides of your body and the back of your body that we forget about a lot because it's behind us. So you want to feel for expanding the ribs underneath the shoulder blades, expanding the ribs in the back. Beautiful. So practice this. Breath is an amazing practice. You can sit down for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and just notice your breath. It's a really calming meditation. It's a good way to reconnect with yourself. There's a lot more to say about the breath. The breath is one of the most important aspects of yoga. In my opinion, breath and awareness are the two most important parts of your yoga practice, even if you're practicing asana or vinyasa or very physical yoga practice. Those are the two most important parts, are the breath and the awareness. That being said, the breath is actually a very advanced aspect. So don't be hard on yourself if it feels difficult to get it at first, or if you just feel like you're not breathing right, or how do I do this? It's really advanced to get the breath smooth and controlled, and yet free at the same time. You want to have control of the breath, but it shouldn't be a rigid control where it's like, you must breathe this way. It's more of like a breath that is consciously controlled and yet free and moving with the wisdom of the body. So practice some more. I'm going to post a few more videos about some other aspects of the breath. Please check those out if you're interested. I bow to the prana within each of you. Namaste.